There's a lot of concern, I think, in our nation today about our governing structures. Address that crisis of confidence that I think people are rightly experiencing in some of these executive branch agencies.
Part of it is to just remember from the very beginning, part of the American character was always have a certain healthy skepticism about government, right? That's the American Revolution. So that's always been there. And essentially it's part of our constitutional system, right? There are checks on government. The whole essence of it is to put brakes on government. Partially because from the founding forward, and in the founding you see very clearly, we have distrust of human nature. Right? They're prone to do things, whether we understand that as it's man's sinful nature or just his political passions, right? We have checks on government. So that essential quality has always been there. This is not something that is improper, shall I say. But over time, especially over the last half of this 20th century especially, government has been doing more and more and more things. And so the likelihood of government doing more and more things badly has been increasing. Also of late, in the last 10, 15 years or so, government is doing more and more things, and individuals, executives, people in the administration are realizing they can do more and more things without Congress. Is an increasing temptation to politicize those operations. So in that sense, a very politicized FBI, which I think we're seeing now, is in many ways a harbinger or a signal of a deeper problem, which is that more and more what government does is outside of the normal political processes that we can kind of check. They're accumulating all these powers of government, which ought to be separated. Now, in the midst of that, given human nature, the temptation to use that for political purposes, when your political enemies, are potentially winning an election through the popular branches, you can block it through either executive power or using judicial power. That temptation is old as man himself. But that's exactly what the Constitution, the rule of law, is meant to prevent. And the problem now is it's not being prevented.
It would be hard to argue against the notion that there has been an erosion of the moral base of the nation. And when you have an erosion of the moral base of the nation, it seems that the only thing left is sort of that Nietzschean idea of the will to power, the pursuit of power. And it seems like that's directly what we have playing out here. When you don't have a shared moral consensus as a nation anymore, it's just who can get to the levers and pull them first. Isn't that kind of what we see playing out?
No, I think that's right. And if you think of government as having checks in itself, but then of course the check on that and the ultimate legitimacy behind all of that is the American people. And they need to have the type of character and cultural baggage or strength, if you will, or rootedness to make good moral decisions. Absolutely. I think it's important for Christians and those broadly with moral concerns about our culture, to keep in mind here, however, that how do you get back to that? We can't remove ourselves from those political questions. Getting those right is important because that will entail a decentralization of government's authority, the diminishing of its authority, which will allow for a flourishing of precisely those cultural institutions which you and I both know are the ones that are the source of that moral character and that moral rootedness that make for not only good self-governing citizens, but good moral believing citizens.
Dr. Spalding, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for your information and knowledge. We appreciate you being with us.
Thank you.